This one against Raúl Sanguinetti, who was an international master at the time from Argentina. He was born in Paraná, Argentina, on February 2nd, 1933. He passed away August 6, 2000, at the age of 67. And he had only the year before become an IM. By the way, Bobby had only this year become an IM. As far as I know, this was his one and only tournament as an international master. He went from national master, and then having won the U.S. Championship zonal tournament, he became an international master, and his placement in this event made him a grandmaster. Let me show you that cross table again. 6th place. So having qualified for the candidates, he was bumped to grandmaster. Not bad for a 15-year-old kid in a day and age when chess was a game mostly for men, not so much for younger men. Now, Sanguinetti did get a honorary grandmaster in 1982. Definitely merited, in my opinion, much like an honorary doctorate is merited, even if it's not earned, doesn't mean it's unmerited. Because Sanguinetti was Argentinian chess champion 7 times, guys. When you're a national chess champion 7 times, why aren't you a grandmaster, right? Those were in the years 1956, 57, 62, 65, 69, 73, and 74. This Interzonal and another at Biel were the only European tournaments, or maybe there were 1 or 2 others, but he didn't really play much in Europe. But he had quite a showing in South America, and that may have been what hindered his progress as well. But he was South American chess champion in 1975, not to mention winning at Buenos Aires in 1977 without a loss. All right, so Sanguinetti with e4, and we know, of course, Bobby played the Sicilian defense, specifically Najdorf's variation, almost exclusively against e4. And so knight f3, d6, d4, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight f6, and after knight c3, it is not surprising at all to see a6, Miguel Najdorf's variation. f4 here is the Amsterdam variation, and e5, knight back to f3, queen c7, bishop d3, queen's knight to d7, and white castles here. Bobby with b5. Now, bishop e7 is the more frequently played move, and usually you'll see, always really, at some point you'll see with these f4 openings, king h1, getting off of the a7 g1 diagonal. And after castles and queen e1, we then get b5. Okay, that's the most frequently played line. Bobby jumping on b5 right away here, and queen e1, and you'll probably see a lot of the same ideas. Well, bishop b7 here, and knight h4. Okay, knight h4 has the idea of knight f5, and it also does open a line of attack for the rook here, but king h1 being called for. You might, in my opinion, play b4 also here, even though it looks a little weird perhaps, but maybe not. I like the idea of blockading this pawn. No, it says inaccurate. Oh, play a3 to deal with b4 threat. Yeah, that does make more sense, doesn't it? All right, knight h4 was played, and g6 says no, you will not play knight f5. How about b4 from Bobby? Is that a move? Oh, that's also inaccurate. I guess nobody should play to b4. But that does push the knight back, doesn't it? And then you got something like d5, pawn takes pawn, and knight takes pawn. And now you're starting to open lines of attack toward your opponent's king. I was just about to show this. Okay, come back. Anyway, g6 was Fischer's move. Knight goes back to f3, having successfully provoked some weakness in the king's side. Bishop g7, and now queen h4 is played, right? So not liked there by the bot either. Pawn takes pawn being called for, with pawn takes pawn surely to follow. Let's go back. Queen h4 from Sanguinetti. Bobby goes ahead and castles here, and now pawn takes pawn, and pawn takes pawn. Bishop h4 is an interesting concession. Well, it should win material, but it comes at a positional cost. So you see bishop e3 being recommended by the bot. Probably bishop g5 should be considered as well. We get a thumbs up there. Well, knight h5 from Bobby. Okay, so on bishop takes, queen takes, and then I suppose you can finally play b4 here. Yes. But Fischer with knight h5, bishop takes the bishop, and king takes the bishop. Now, after setting it up, Sanguinetti does not play the expected a4. He goes and plays his queen's rook to d1. I think we've all experienced formulating an idea and then abandoning it when we should have gone forward. We should have followed through with our idea. What did he fear from playing a4? Why did he change his mind? I'm not real sure, to be honest. Maybe queen c5 check? Anyway, queen's rook to d1 is what he played. Now Bobby with knight f4, applying some heat to the g-man. Question mark, unclear. Maybe because the queen has access to e7. But okay, so the bot's saying rook d8. Why not knight to c5 to defend e7? Okay, I get a star for that. And this also precludes white from getting another chance to play a4, by the way. Anyway, knight f4. Here rook f2 was played. Yeah, that's inaccurate. I actually thought knight takes e5 was interesting. I get a star. And here we're not going to play queen c5 check and then king escapes to h1. We're going to play knight takes pawn and attack. Oh, yes! A double exclam. A double exclam. And so after king takes our knight, we have knight takes knight. Bada bing, bada boom. And that king is in line with our bishop. This looks pretty good. I got peaches all aiming up that way. He might play bishop e2 here, I would imagine. Okay, knight d5 was my other choice. But on knight d5, I'll just play bishop takes knight. And on pawn takes bishop, now I'll play knight takes the bishop. Bada bing, bada boom. All the while, by the way, knight takes e5 was an idea, but the bot actually liked a4 here, I think. All right, anyhow, rook f2 was played, now f6, and he doubles his rooks on the d file, battery attacking our knight right here, threatening a fork right there. So why does it get an inaccuracy? It's a good move. It's a good try, at least. Also threatening this pawn, because after all, that's a discovered attack, isn't it? What would we play here, guys? Another choice is to attack the knight, I guess. Now, if he plays g3 here, we'll take the bishop. Apparently, that might not be the best move. All right, anyway, doubling the rooks is quite a threat here. It's worth a try, in my opinion. So Bobby gets out of the rook's line of fire and plays his knight to c5, which, again, makes sense to me. It puts some pressure here on, look at all these pieces aiming and pressuring white, especially pressure on e4, that isolated pawn. Okay, b4 is being called for from the bot. Yeah, okay, I get it. Well, bishop f1. Oh, yeah, because that loses the e-pawn eventually. You can't take it right away, I don't think. The point of a3 here is to prevent b4 from being played. That's why the bot's recommending the a3 move. So Bobby played b4, and I'm not sure why that gets an X either, hitting the knight. I started to say, you don't want to be hasty here and grab this pawn, because don't forget this fork is looming, right? So the knight can't take the pawn, because the knight's defending that square. And therefore, the bishop can't take the pawn because the knight's not really defending the bishop. Yeah, it gets a blunder, right? Rook d7 is looming, but that's why we can go ahead and take that bishop with impunity. And you cannot take my knight or you're losing your queen for a rook, right? That's important. So don't forget about that battery. But b4 seems reasonable, nice aggressive move. Okay, I see what the bot is saying is bring another piece in to preclude rook d7. And this rook isn't doing anything anyway. So that does make sense here as well. Knight d5, knight a4 is preferred. Because again, this knight, you can't take the knight because of rook d7. That's why. Bam. I don't know if knight e2 might be playable. Okay, it changed its mind. Sometimes it changes its mind in my favor like it does here. Fischer Seb says, on knight a4, bishop takes pawn, queen f2. Hold on. You want bishop takes pawn here? And then queen f2? Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I can add a defender, though, right? Yeah, that's an interesting super attack, though. Let's go back. Anyway, knight d5 was played, hitting the queen. So bishop takes the knight, pawn takes the bishop, knight e4 hits the rook, and here Sanguinetti inexplicably gives up the exchange without any real compensation. c4 is probably necessary here. And white's hope in playing c4 is that you'll play knight takes rook, which is probably not the best move here. What should we play here? We should just take en passant. But here's an important lesson about effort, trying things to see. You can only lose each game one time, right? So you're not going to be any more losing, and it's worth a try to see if he'll take that rook, and that eval bar is close to equal right there. Now, obviously, we can take en passant and force you to move your rook. And the only safe place to put it is over here. It's a sensible move. Okay, coming back. Queen e1, though, says go ahead and take the exchange. Queen takes the knight. Win the exchange anyway with queen b6. Where at? Down here, you mean? Or, oh no. Where was it? Oh, after this? We're winning the exchange anyway with what? Oh, queen b6 check? No, how's that win the exchange? Okay, queen b6. Oh, because of pawn takes pawn, or? Okay, so I give check. He has to come here. I take the pawn, and then I blockade. But I'm not seeing how you're winning the exchange. Oh, because, I mean, this looks okay for black. I don't quite see how to win the exchange, though, clearly. Oh, I see. All right, let's go back. Queen e1, where was I? Got distracted. Queen e1 says, go ahead and take the exchange. Knight takes the rook. Queen takes the knight. Knight takes the pawn. And Bobby scores a double exclam here. Now, the point here is you're giving up your knight for a pawn, right? No, wrong. You cannot play queen takes knight. Who can tell me why? Queens do not make very good spearheads to the battery, unless the only time you want a queen to be the spearhead of a battery is if it facilitates checkmate. That's right, Tracer, the skewer. If you play, and he didn't, he played c4 here, but if you play queen takes the knight, you've got queen's rook to d8, and now your queen has to move away, and after all the smoke clears, you've lost some material. Queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, rook takes rook check, and that should be that. So you could play bishop d3 here, though, right? Not here, but here. He played c4, but maybe you could play bishop d3. I get a thumbs up here for that. I mean, I'm still playing maybe my other rook to d8, but okay. Oops, that's a mouse slip. He played c4. c4 and pawn took pawn en passant. Oh, and Sanguinetti resigned right there. Not much you can do at this juncture. After pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, it's the rook. And there is no pin here. It's illusory because I can get out of the pin with tempo. Check. Okay, or queen a7. It's the same thing. It's just different. The point is, I gain a tempo, and after you get out of check, then I can retreat my knight. In fact, I can retreat my knight with a hit on your queen. So, Sanguinetti resigned the game. Just want to run it through. 94.7 for Fischer. Single game rating assessment 2850. Sanguinetti had a fine opening, didn't he? But as usual, Bobby Fischer capitalized on his opportunities in the middle game.